Hi, and welcome to Inspiration Station on Entrepreneur.com. I'm Kirsten Kloss. Thanks very much for watching. So on our show today, we're going to focus on the idea of creating a book and writing in general. And I've joined with me here, I would say a veteran in book writing, Dan Poynter, and he's joining us here in the show. Well, Dan, I got to introduce you first before thank you for your arrival here. Dan, he's been author of more than 130 books. He's been a book publisher since 1969 and is a certified speaking professional. And he travels the world speaking on book writing, publishing, and promoting. So no better person than that. Thanks very much for joining us on the show today.
Privilege and pleasure. Good to see you, Kirsten.
Well, Dan, our audience is, faced with challenges nowadays. I mean, there's just so much noise out there, and it's such a difficult thing to grasp is how do you get known, get noticed, get trusted, become believable? And, the classic process of come out with a book has always been a very powerful way of opening doors. First of all, Dan, how did you get into writing books?
Well, my background is in parachutes, and I was I was jumping 2 days a week and designing parachutes 5 days a week and writing in the evenings. And after a while, I realized that I had enough information here for a very technical manual on parachutes, and I came out with that in 1972. That was just a little after another book that I did, which was a little more modest in 1969. In 1973, I got interested in the sport of hang gliding, and boy, I looked around for a book on it because I was book oriented, but I couldn't find one, and I knew what to do about that. Being a skydiver and being a pilot, it was pretty easy for me to write that book and do the research, come out here to California to get all the photographs, and I put that together in 4.5 months. That book on hang gliding took off, as we say in aviation, like a homesick angel. And it was selling for $4.95, if you can believe that. Well, the dollar is worth more now. It was worth more then. And it allowed me to move here to California, to Santa Barbara, and to buy this house on a hill. I love this business. But that's how I got started. Now let's talk about your viewers. Mm-hmm. The basis, the foundation of everything that you do starts with your book. If you're just getting into business, or if you want to improve your business, you want to go back and work on that book, that is what's going to bring you the credibility in your business. That's going to it's going to make you an authority. If you think about it, the word authority contains the word author. So once you edit the book, you become an authority by definition. And people, of course, hold books and authors in high esteem. It gives you a lot of credibility. And that's why everything has to start with the book.
Well, as a confirmation, I guess, maybe you can explain to our audience, it truly does influence your life. And how did it influence yours instantly when you did become published and popular?
Well, I'm an introverted author, so it's pretty difficult for an introvert. But I remember going into one parachute center, and when this young jumper found out that Dan Poynter was there, he just became electrified, and he ran all over the parachute center saying, "Dan Poynter's here, Dan Poynter's here." And that was a little embarrassing. And this is the type of thing that happens to introverted authors. All of a sudden, everybody wants to see you, they want to touch you, they want to know you, they want to hear from you, they want your autograph, they want your picture, and that's pretty tough for us introverts. It's something that I'm not sure you ever get used to it. But it's something that, as an introvert, you have to deal with it.
So it's not all easy either in the coming out with the books and coming up with the content. What are some of the challenges that authors face in general?
Well, I like to say that the greatest challenge to publishing is dealing with the day-to-day excitement. Look, this is self-employment. And it's doing something creative. And again, people want to know you and know who you are and what you're doing. They want your information. Just think about waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning, so excited you can't sleep because your head's just full of ideas and you're thinking about things, and you have to get up and go to the keyboard. That doesn't happen with a regular job. As a matter of fact, I read recently in Forbes magazine that in the United States, 86% of the population doesn't like their job. I think the other 14% are published authors. um, it's just really fun if you love what you do and you do what you love.
Well, I think I know where you're going with this, and that is that, pretty much, I guess my next question kind of relates to, what do you write about? And, do you need to be an authority in a PhD in order to be able to pull this off?
Well, you're going to do a lot of research for your book. You're writing from personal experience and the best research you can do. And of course, we have access to the world's largest library. I mean, you can live in paradise, like Calgary, for instance, and you have access to the internet. You don't have to get in your car and go to the library. You have the same access as anybody else in the world. And I'm sorry. So what I want you to do is think about what you want to be doing 3 years from now. What do you want to be known for? What business do you want to be in? What do you want to be thinking about? What do you want to be dreaming about? What do you want to be writing about? That's the subject. The subject is go where your heart is. Now, just for example, I started with technical books on parachutes, popular books on skydiving, because that's my other life. That's the thing that I love to do. And it's very easy for me to do research on that and to read about it and to take that information and check with friends and distill it all down, put it into words and put it into a book, because that's my first love. And that's what I want you to do. If you have 20 years in something like real estate and you really know a lot about it, that's great. But what if you want to bail from real estate and what you really like is snow skiing? Write your book on skiing, because that is where your heart is. And that's what's going to get you to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning so excited you can't sleep. Uh, don't go with what you know so much as where you want to be.
And so what I'm guessing here is we're not necessarily limited to nonfiction. It could be anything, fiction or nonfiction.
Fiction or nonfiction. And I have 132 works of nonfiction. And a couple years ago, I did my first work of fiction just to see if I could do it. And that was I had a lot of fun writing that. But let's make the distinction. Fiction is entertainment. Nonfiction is valuable information that people buy to learn something or to solve a problem. We've always said in the past that nonfiction was easier to sell because it was easier to find our market. We could locate them and then access them. And of course, let's go back to parachute books. It was pretty easy for me to find people in the parachute industry, the parachute clubs, the parachute catalogs, the parachute associations, the parachute schools, and so on. But things have changed, and we find that at Amazon, of all the best-selling 1 million sellers of the ebooks, they're all fiction. Now, I think most of them are romance novels. So times have changed, but today with the internet, you have access to people all over the world who are interested in your particular subject, whether it be fiction or nonfiction. They're easy to identify and they're easy to reach. So you may have a reader here, there, and halfway around the world. They all add up. They're not just readers from your neighborhood. It's not just those people who go into a bookstore. Everybody is online and everybody has access and everybody is looking for your subject, your book, or you.
Well, that's obviously key. Now, actually going about the process of writing a book. I mean, what you're telling our audience now is know your subject, research your subject. Look, if someone has a busy schedule, or let's say they're in an industry where they really want to excel and drive sales and build their business, how do they get time to come out with a work like a book? Because I mean, from what I've heard from authors, it's a lot of work. What's your thought on that?
Well, there are some tricks, and I've written a lot of books, so I know the tricks. One of them is to keep that project in your mind all the time. And we do that by putting our work in a binder and carrying it with us. several years ago, I was doing a speech in Santa Monica, California. That's about 2 hours south. Now it happens that it was the day after the Northridge earthquake. And I could see that the freeways were down and I knew the traffic would be even worse than usual. So I left Santa Barbara 4 hours early. Well, as luck would have it, the traffic wasn't that bad and I got down to Santa Monica 4 hours early. I went into this big auditorium, got everything set up, and I had 4 extra hours. I couldn't go down to the bar for a beverage. I had a presentation to do, but I had a binder with me. And I sat down and I got 4 hours of quality, uninterrupted work on my project in that binder. And then I couldn't wait to get home and put that into the computer. Yes, you can carry the computer with you, and some people like to do that. It just takes a little time to set it up and turn it on and get it going. And I find that the written word in a binder works a little better for me. There are other times when I'm carrying a pad of paper in the car and I'll jot my notes down. Now, when you get in the car, turn off the sound system, and just think about your book and go over it and over it. How am I going to explain this? What words do I use? Take some notes, write it down, capture it. And then the next thing is to capture it in the computer. I'll give you another really hot tip, and that is don't start your book at the beginning. Well, the first chapter tends to be the introduction to the rest of the book, but many people are looking at the whole book and it looks like a very steep climb. Concentrate on one item, one story, one solution, and write it down. Capture it in the computer. You capture a whole bunch of little pieces because they're easy. While you're thinking of it, you say, oh, that's the way to do it, that's the way to say it, and you put it in the computer. And then you're going to assemble them later. You're going to put them into some semblance of order. You're going to put the transitions between all of these thoughts, and you're going to have your book. Don't do the whole book. Work on the pieces first.
That's a fantastic tip. And, it's funny because some authors I don't know if it's Jeffrey Gitomer or a few others, Seth Godin is one. He writes a blog and he takes all these snippets of his blogs and then it all becomes basically feed for a book. So it's kind of what you're saying is just create a diary, create an ongoing diary. Okay, moving on to publishing. And, I know that classic scene where, you're going up to the big glass tower and you've got to present your book to the publisher and then you're praying and hoping on your knees that they accept your book. Is that the case anymore? Can you self-publish? Explain to our audience a little bit more about that.
Well, that doesn't happen anymore. There are 5 big publishers left in New York. They're all consolidating, downsizing, going out of business. Now, bear in mind, I wrote the self-publishing manual back in '79. And I was years and years ahead of where the market is. But then I've been talking about ebooks since '92, and they didn't really start making it big until just 3 or 4 years ago. Anyway, so just so you know that I wrote the self-publishing manual, you know where I'm coming from. If you self-publish, you're going to make more money, you're going to get to press much sooner, and you're going to keep control of your work. This is extremely important. Make more money. You don't need somebody else out there. Get to press sooner. It takes a large publisher 18 months to take your manuscript once they approve of it and run it through their whole system, manufacture the books, get them distributed, and put them on the shelf in the bookstores. And keep control of your work. I am embarrassed by the books coming out of New York. Now, I travel all over the world. I fly 9,000 kilometers every week. And I see books all over the world. I speak on books from everywhere from New Zealand to the UK, South Africa, and I look at these books coming from other countries, and they're gorgeous the way books should be. They're pieces of work, pieces of art, and our books here are getting cheaper and cheaper. They're saving money on things like the paper. They're using a natural stock, which looks like newsprint, and the covers are really crummy, and I'm just embarrassed by them. You can spend a few pennies more and put out a book that you can be proud of. Imagine handing your book to somebody and say, yeah, I'm sorry, I apologize for the way it looks. It's not really good, but it was out of my control. I mean, you'd feel bad about it. You're doing this book for credibility, to make you an authority, and it has to look better than you do. I often say if you put out a mimeograph brochure, people think they're going to get a mimeograph book. Your book has to look great because that's what makes you look great. So if you have it in your mind that you want to go after a large publisher, I'll give you a couple of tips on how to do that. Number one, match your book to the publisher. You don't send a cookbook to a travel publisher. So go to Amazon, that's the world's greatest database, look for books similar to yours, what you have in mind, and see who the publishers are. That's the way to match your book to the publisher. And you do the same thing with agents. You can go to Amazon, you can go to a large bookstore and find books very close to yours. Call up the author. You could find the author with a Google search. And call up the author and say, I've got a book in the same category as you. It doesn't compete with you, of course. But who is your agent? And then when you call that agent, you can say, so-and-so sent me. And of course, they know who so-and-so is, so you kind of have an introduction there. But that way you're matching your book to the agent. Mm-hmm. Again, I don't recommend that you deal with that. I recommend that if you're going that direction, you get your calendar out. And you look out 1 week, 1 month, 6 months, whatever it is. I won't tell you what to pick, but pick a date and put a mark on the calendar for that date, and don't go 1 second past that date. Not one more meeting, one more committee, one more maybe, but just say, this is when I'm going to say to heck with it. What's important to you is getting that book out because it's your credibility. It makes you an authority. And you want to get that out as quickly as possible. What we're doing today in self-publishing is we finish our manuscript, and then and that might be 6 o'clock at night, and then we upload it to Amazon Kindle, and we upload it to smashwords.com, and at the speed of light, you're published. Your book is available to the public. The next secret, or the next mission, is to let people know that you have a book out, and it's a book that they would be interested in, and where to get it.
Well, this is what it sounds like. It's almost like the published book or the promoted book that's the big seller is kind of the byproduct of a book that actually is something that you're creating for yourself. So when you promote the book yourself, and then eventually you pick up the people that want to promote it for you, it's a different approach than going for the publisher and hoping that he'll promote your book. I mean, I guess that's what's kind of the direction you're going in, or is self-publishing something else?
No, publishers do two things. They have the book printed. They don't print the book. And they have the book distributed. They send it out to brick and mortar bookstores and the online bookstores. Mm-hmm. That's all they do. They don't promote books. Now, if you're a big name author, you might get something into your contract and say that they have to put a certain amount of money into promotion, in which case they'll blow it someplace, like a tombstone ad in the New York Times, just to get rid of you and to get rid of the money. But for people down at our level, it's just not going to happen. They're not going to put any money into promotion. As a matter of fact, they will not even sign you up unless you have a following. And you take Madonna. Madonna is a celebrity. She has a following. There are people who will buy anything with her name on it. She has a line of perfume. Do you think she makes the perfume? No, she doesn't. Okay, she has a bunch of books. Does she write the books? I don't know, but probably not. But her name is on it. That's a brand, and the publisher knows they're going to sell so many just because she has a following. And if you don't have a following, they don't want to talk to you. So what's important in going after an agent and going after a publisher, and by the way, about 90% of the books sold to publishers go through agents. Well, you can approach both the agent and the publisher. That's okay. So if you're going to approach an agent and a publisher, you have to prove that you are somebody who's going to promote the book. And they have heard it too often. Oh, I can't wait to go on the road and promote this book. And sometimes the author doesn't even show up because they know that most authors are introverts. And this is really difficult for them. So what you have to do is give them a list of the television shows you've been on, the radio shows, the interviews that you've done, like this one. The every public appearance that you've made, how many people are following you? How many people have you affected? That's what they want to know. But you've got to show them that you've already done it, not that you're promising, because they've heard that before.
Mm. So you're proving to them that that you're a PR person as well as a writer, which I mean, I guess they just want it easy, don't they?
Well, you take Dan Brown and all the books that he's written. Um, Up until his last book, when he was in a couple of magazines, they probably pulled him kicking and screaming. Before that, the only time you ever saw his face is when he was subpoenaed to court by a judge. I mean, that's an introvert.
Yeah,
And
big time.
we have some very introverted authors out there, and we have some who reluctantly go out and do a little, but most of us would rather stay at home and write.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, okay, so let's. I mean, we've looked at some tips. We've gotten some great pointers. Let's look at the possible pitfalls of going through this process. I mean, I imagine there's publishing scams out there. Any warnings that you might want to just share with our audience?
Yes, and I'm glad you brought that up. It's very unfortunate, but because of the internet, well, we've always had some vanity presses around, but there weren't too many, and you had to pay them to put your book out. But now with the internet, we have definitely have some scams. Now, I could list some companies, but I won't do that because you're not going to listen to me anyway. I want you to make a Google search. This is very objective. I'll tell you how to make the search, and then you can make your own decision depending on what you find. But what I want you to do is make a Google search for the company name and the plus sign, and then the word scam, company name plus fraud,
Hmm.
company name plus Better Business Bureau, company name plus ripoff. And when people have had problems, they'll write about it. Now, some people are just screaming, but you'll read so many of them that you'll realize that there's a problem with this company. There are a lot of companies out there, and I don't need one of these. Yes, there are people who are scam artists out there, unfortunately, but I've given you the way to get around them and to determine who they are and to stay away from them.
Yeah, let Google do it, and there's a lot of information there. Let's get on to aesthetics now for just a second, and then I'll maybe wrap up with some general tips. Here's one that often comes to mind. I mean, I interview a lot of authors, and I would say 90% of the books I receive from authors, whether they be from McGraw-Hill or Penguin or whoever, they're hardcover. Is it important to have a hardcover versus softcover? And the other question, of course, is the cover itself. Is it important to have a dressed up cover with lots of color, or what's the norm out there?
Well, the outside sells the inside. But let me give you a little history. Years ago, books came out in hardcover first. And then if they did well, a year or so later, they came out in softcover. And then if they were still selling well, they might come out in little mass market paperbacks, those crummy little books that were sold in the supermarkets and the drugstores. So the feeling is still out there in the media and with publishers and people in the publishing industry that if it's hardcover, it's new, and if it's softcover, well, I guess I missed it when it came out because it's not new anymore. The hardcovers traditionally were bought by the first adopters. The softcovers were purchased by most of us because it took us a year to hear about the book, and the mass market paperback were bought by the budget-minded people. So yes, there is a difference. And if you're using this book for credibility, maybe to promote your book or your industry, to promote your business or your industry, then you want to spend a little more and come out with hardcover. Now, the difference is this. With softcover, your minimum print run is 500. With and don't say, well, I can go to a POD printer and have 10 printed or something, because then you're paying full price for one at a time price, even though you're buying 10 or even 100. But at 500, you're getting a better deal. Printing's a quantity game. The more you print, the lower the per unit cost. So 500 is your minimum for the soft cover, and then for the hardcover, it's 3,000. And that's because they have to set up what we call the case binding machinery, the thing that puts that hardcover on. And a hardcover will only cost you about $1 more, but you have to buy 3,000. So hardcover if you're looking for credibility. Otherwise, most books come out in softcover. But remember what I said before. Initially, we bring it out as an ebook. And then we go back to the typesetter and we have the typeset. We make the book look good. The outside of your package sells the inside. So you want a dynamite looking back cover and front cover. I usually suggest that you go with a cover artist because they know where to put all the pieces. I've been in this a long time. Quite often I make my own covers. It takes me about 20 minutes. It's real fast. And when you're doing a soft cover book, excuse me, doing an ebook, you don't even have to worry about the thickness of the spine. All you need is a front cover. You don't even need a back cover. Well, you need all the information for your back cover because that's also your selling, your sales pitch.
Yep.
And the back cover, people can go to my website at parapub.com and get document 116 on how to lay out your back cover. It's all paint by numbers. It's all in boxes, and you just fill in the boxes. It's very, very easy. That's parapub.com. Think Parachutes Publishing, of course. So, yes, the package on the outside is very important, and you want to use decent paper on the inside, but you can do that because you're making the selection yourself, and it only costs you a penny or two more than what the New York publishers are using. And anyway, so you want a good-looking package because that's going to sell the inside.
Yeah, and we're a packaging-based society, so you're very right on that. And it's really nice to thump that book on the table when you're in that boardroom, and it actually has some weight to it. I like to ask this question often of authors, and now we're talking author of authors here, so I got to think of a good question here. But let me ask you this: if you could give someone a quick 1-2 pointer scenario, how to pick a publisher and a promoter to create that book, what would be your suggestion as far as, maybe even a 1, 2, 3 quickly? What would you suggest?
Publisher, you want to go to somebody who publishes your kind of book. As I mentioned before, you don't send a travel book cookbook publisher. That should be fairly obvious. But find somebody who not only knows what you're talking about, but loves it, and they know where to sell it. That's the most important part.
So a one-stop shop.
Well, if you're going to sell out to the publisher, yes. Now, what was the second part? How do I
Well,
find
it's just
a
how to promote it, how to get it out there.
Well, that's changed completely because we used to send review copies off to magazines and newspapers. Well, the newspapers are consolidating, downsizing, going out of business. They don't have room for book reviews anymore. The magazines, we deal with the specialized magazines. Now, for example, in the parachute field, the skydiving field, there are 48 parachute magazines around the world. If I send a review copy off to them, everyone's going to review it because they understand it and their readers want to know about new products and new books. So that's really easy. We're finding that most of the magazines are consolidating, downsizing, going out of business. Now, you still have magazines for activities, outdoor things, sports, because they're very visual, and the magazines are full of photographs, and there's a lot of advertising. They work. So we have Parachutist magazine, Hang Gliding magazine, Sport Aviation magazine, and so on. Some of these may be newsstand magazines, and most of them aren't even. But we're talking 100-page, 4-color, really gorgeous magazines. But most of the magazines are consolidating, going out of business. So the new reviewers are the book bloggers on your subject. All you have to do is go to Google, type in book blog plus your subject. Now, a couple of years ago, I did a book on called the Air Travel Handbook. It's for consumers of air travel. It's not for people in the aviation industry, not for pilots or flight attendants or fixed-base operators. It's for the consumer. It has all kinds of inside tips because I fly more than 6,000 miles every week. I've done 21 round-the-world itineraries, and a lot of out and backs to foreign countries, but 21 times around the world. In fact, the last one I did it in 2 days. Left Los Angeles on a Tuesday, went to Washington, D.C., to Dubai, Shanghai, Taipei, and I landed back in Los Angeles on a Thursday. So no jet lag. You see, jet lag doesn't come from crossing meridians. It comes from adjusting to a new time. So all those books, magazine articles are wrong, and I proved it. I stayed on Pacific Standard Time. And anyway, getting back to my air travel handbook, I did a search for book blogs on air travel, consumer air travel. I came up with 124 of them. Now, think about this book blog. It's a blog, but it concentrates on books, and it concentrates on books on air travel. That means that the owner of that blog knows exactly what I'm talking about. He or she is fascinated in it. They are looking for information. Think about their subscribers. The only reason they subscribe is because they cover consumer air travel. I mean, that person might be here, might be there, might be halfway around the world, but they are focused and fascinated by the air travel subject. So you're going right to the consumer. It's what we call marketing with a rifle shot, not a scatter gun. You're, no collateral damage. You're just going right after that person that is interested, who wants to read it, who will read it, who will open it up and read every word and devour it and hopefully respond to it. So the new the new reviewers are the book bloggers, and they're very easy to find.
Well, we've taken up a half an hour of your time, and I appreciate your time here in joining us on the interview. First of all, okay, we've been talking about all these books for other people. Let's focus on yours. Where can listeners get your books and more information on the whole concept of book writing? Maybe you can kind of summarize with that.
Well, you can check my books at my website. You can also go to Amazon or smashwords.com. Just type in the word Poynter, Poynter, and they'll all come up. But what I want to do for you, I want each one of your viewers to send for one of my free information kits. I have information kits on writing, on publishing, promoting. So you're getting just the information that you need at this particular time. So you can go to parapub.com, Parapub.com, think parachutes and publishing, and click on the free information kits. You just type in your email address. We don't want your social security number, your phone number, or anything else. Just put that in, and the Autobot sends it back to you within seconds. You'll get it.
Fantastic.
And I do have a few parting words for our listeners, and that is the most expensive parts of publishing are the mistakes. You don't have to make them. We've already done it, and it's all written down. And people in publishing are so very, very helpful. You can, call them up, see them at meetings, chat them up, and they'll be happy to tell you what to do and what not to do. Publishing people are wonderful people. They tend to be a little bit better educated than the general populace. They are experts in their field. If they've written a book on stamp collecting, they are an expert on stamp collecting, believe me. So look for people who publish, and look for people who publish books like yours, because you've got a new friend here. We are not competitors, we are collaborators, and we collaborate on selling more books.
Great having you on the show, Dan. Thanks very much for joining us.
Honor and a pleasure. Thank you, Kirsten.
We've been joined by Dan Poynter with Para Publishing, and you can check out his website at parapublishing.com. Just remember, Parachute Publishing, parapublishing.com. Thank you all for watching. This is Inspiration Station on entrepreneur.com. I'm Kirsten Kloss. See you again real soon. Bye for now.